If your pipeline is green, but your data is missing, who finds out first? Your dashboard or your CEO? Because if it's not you, you've got a problem. Let's settle this up front. If you have ever had a pipeline show green, but send out garbage data or empty reports, drop a yes or no down in those comments. And if you have, you are not alone. For those of you that haven't been here before, I am Chris Gambill. This is the data engineering channel where we cover the data engineering concepts that you need to be a successful data engineer. So today, let me tell you about one of the worst weeks of my own data career in my 25 years. The first sign of trouble was my phone lighting up at 7 a.m. with a stream of angry messages from sales and operations. Why are our numbers all zero? Did something break? We were running our ETL jobs in Informatica. Everything looked great. Pipelines were green. There were no errors, no warnings. But the sales reports went out with no data for an entire market. Zeros across the board. There was panic. It was absolute chaos. Angry emails, frantic calls, execs breathing down our necks, asking us just how did this happen without anybody knowing. Turns out, pipeline succeeded technically, but a source system returned 0 rows, and nobody caught it. The data engineer who added that step forgot to add validation for low and missing row counts. 3 days, 2 meetings, a whole lot of screaming, and way too much stress later, we fixed it. But here's the part that stings. It took weeks to rebuild that trust with the business. And honestly, before we got back to where we really were, it was months. People stopped believing in the numbers. They didn't trust. It caused extra work because there was constant emails about, hey, can you double check these numbers? Are you sure they're right? This is the real cost of those silent failures, and lesson learned, right? In data engineering, green doesn't always mean good. It just means that nobody's looking in the right place. Out-of-the-box monitoring only tells you if the job has failed or succeeded, not if it's actually there, it's fresh, or even that it makes sense. So one of the big rookie mistakes, especially beginning and fresher data engineers make, are equating job success or pipeline success with data success. Those two things don't always equate. You need to ask, is my data healthy? Not just, did my pipeline run? So let's talk a little bit about monitoring and observability. These are really the brass tacks definitions here. Monitoring is going to be your smoke alarm, right? It is going to tell you if something is burning, but not necessarily what or why. Observability, on the other hand, is your actual security camera or your temperature sensors, right? These are the signs of silent failures. Is the data what you're expecting it to be? So monitoring, did it run? Observability, is it right? So how do you avoid my personal disaster story that I shared with you? And it's simple. You layer your monitoring. Your layer 1, which is something that we're going to go over here in a minute, is built-in ADF monitoring. This is great for job statuses and errors, but it's not enough, right? It's not enough to really cover you. Layer 2 is going to be your custom data checks. Are there any nulls in the data? Is the data fresh? Was there any schema drift that occurred? Are there actual row counts, rows that are feeding into your data destination? And then finally, layer 3, custom alerts. This is going to alert only when something truly matters and create some type of action that occurs in order to correct it. Don't just set up that smoke alarm. Make sure that the actual fire hose is ready to put out the fire. All right, let's make this a little bit more tangible, a little bit more real for you, and let's jump into ADF. We're going to follow a few steps here, and I'm going to show you a few ways to set some things up in ADF to help with some of this. So step one, set up a standard ADF pipeline alert. You could configure notifications for pipeline failures or duration or timeouts. Step two is going to be add a validation and data check activity. So maybe use a stored procedure, a data flow, or validation activity to check for a minimum row count, any nulls, or freshness date. Here we're going to look at that row count. Build a custom email alert. You could integrate a Python, Azure function, or a logic app to trigger an email if your validation fails. Make the email useful though. Include what failed, how many rows failed, and what was the business impact. This is going to be the difference between bad and good alerting. A bad alert just tells you a pipeline failed. No details, no context, not even a stack trace, just pure chaos and panic. A good alert is pipeline loaded 0 rows for the sales table. The source system X returned no data. Business impact, marketing level reporting is empty. Action required ASAP. Don't just say pipeline failed. Tell them exactly what failed and what to do next. Everything that I'm covering here is in the downloadable checklist so that you could actually implement this, not just watch it. Here's how most people still blow it even with monitoring. 1, only watching pipeline statuses. Green job, but still bad data, right? 2, alert fatigue. You get 100 emails a day and you're going to ignore the one that really matters. And that's going to be what slips you up. Skipping data validation. Assuming that success really means success. Like we talked about, it doesn't all just because the pipeline is successful doesn't mean that the data actually flowed in correctly. Don't make your boss the canary in the coal mine here. Make sure that you are covering yourself, covering your team, and covering your boss by performing these checks all the time. If your only metric for success is that the job ran, you're not in control. Your users are. Real reliability comes from custom validation and actionable alerts. Here is what most junior and fresher engineers miss, and what senior leaders and consulting clients expect. If the person who finds and fixes issues before they hit the business, you're the one who gets trusted and promoted. If you're always the last to know, you are replaceable. So your goal here is to find out about the issues before the business does, every single time. Have you ever had a green but broken message in your data pipelines? Let me know what your worst monitoring horror story or silent failure has been below, and let's learn from everybody else's pain. There's nothing like learning from somebody else's mistakes so that you don't have to trip over the same roadblock. So if you've built some custom alerting systems that really you're proud of and really work, I'd love to hear more about those stories. In fact, if you have an amazing story, I'd love to have you on one of my episodes so that you could share your own process. And don't forget to grab the monitoring and observability checklist so that you know what to monitor, how to alert, and exactly what to do to set up your ADF and beyond. The link is in the description below. And as always, keep your pipelines clean and your queries lean.